Okay, so I'm just going to cut to the chase. I do not like this game at all. Yoshi's New Island is easily one of my least favorite games of the new decade. With that out of the way, I would also like to say that this is not my footage because I no longer own a 3DS. What a shame. Yoshi's New Island was developed by... what's the name? Hold on. Arzest. Oh, that's a new name. And published by Nintendo in 2014. So this is the most recent entry in this part of the marathon. And the worst of them all. Let's start off with the story. Alright, I personally think that the opening is so cringeworthy that I'm just going to explain it while footage plays. I am really struggling to talk about this game without yelling and cursing, aren't I? Basically, this is a direct sequel to the original game in the series, so I guess there's that. And for some reason, the babies were delivered to the wrong parents, and so the stork, alongside the Yoshis, have to redeliver the babies to their correct parents. That is seriously the story. I know that previous Yoshi games weren't too much better, but this is lazier than your typical Mario games. I am less than 2 minutes in and I'm already staggering at something. You can see how the rest of the video is going, and sorry. But in all seriousness, for a Yoshi game, the story isn't what matters, it's the gameplay. And it's basically the same as before. You're running around collecting star points, smiley flowers, and red coins. Pretty simple. It's not really elementary, but it could be way worse. Now you may be wondering, oh, where's the issue? Well, the issue isn't in the fundamental gameplay. I'll say right off the bat that Yoshi's New Island is, at the very least, a competently designed game. However, it is so bland and unoriginal that it is insulting. Aside from the standard gameplay, there are two new, incredibly tacked-on things added to this game. They are, you see this big shy guy? Eat him, and you get a giant egg, which is aptly named the Egg Dozer. Yeah, it just breaks things that are in your path. Why even supply the player with something that is arbitrary as that? I don't know, I simply do not see the point to have that be a selling point. I apologize for the word repetition. You see this big metal shy guy? Eat him, and you get a metal egg dozer. Wow. It sinks you to the bottom of the ocean, and is nifty for KOing enemies. But the thing is that there are power-ups in this game that help you maneuver across water, sea, and other territories much more easily. That thing is called the submarine, and it basically nullifies any reason to have the metal egg dozer. It's much more maneuverable, and it also shoots missiles, basically nullifying, as I said, any reason for the metal egg dozer to be a selling point. Are you finally realizing why I think that these new elements are incredibly tacked on and, quite frankly, unoriginal? Another thing that I simply cannot stand with Yoshi's Island is how bland the level design is. Sure, in Yoshi's Island DS, there are some really bad levels, but at the very least, they're satisfying, or I felt satisfied when I defeated them. Here, that's not the case. The level designs are incredibly easy, have very few, if any, original themes. Puzzles get really repetitive, and worst of all, a lot of them feel like they're straight up ripped off from the original. And here's where my main problem with the game known as Yoshi's New Island comes. I don't think that the game has decided on whether it should be a sequel or a remake to the original. And honestly, the blend goes together at pretty much like oil and water. Basically, they don't. Another thing that I'm impartial to is the boss fights. In particular, the world fights. Kamek boss fights at the mid-towers are completely fine. I actually kind of like them. But, as usual, they're just enemies buffed up by Kamek. Nothing too bad, I'll admit. But that's not the issue. What really bothers me is that they're so long and tedious. The boss fights are not really all that hard, or really fun, but they seem to go on for forever because they are so monotonous. I'm really struggling to come up with a word to describe these bosses, but they are not enjoyable. And yeah, they're not challenging. And this applies for every single boss. Say what you will about the previous two Yoshi's Islands, and even at this, fine, that's your personal opinion, but I simply cannot stand what they did with the bosses here. I mean, seriously, comparatively speaking, I think that they are far inferior to anything that the first two games offered. Even the Kamek fights aren't that good compared to the previous two. Wait, you're kidding me, right? Oh my goodness. Can I have some aspirin, please? Okay. Okay, in order to make this a more pleasant review for everyone, I'm just going to wrap the game up right now. Is that okay with you? I sure hope it is. I do not want to talk about this game anymore. The sixth world really isn't too special at all. Just as bland as the rest of the game is. And that's a shame. But hey, the final boss is better, right? What? I'm already not looking forward to the second phase. And after, you guessed it, you hit him 3 times, he goes big. This couldn't be more cliche if it tried, could it? But basically, you see egg dozers, and this is the only time where they don't come in handy and feel incredibly tacked on to defeat Baby Bowser. And yeah, 3 hits and he's down. Huh, fancy that. We've already beaten him. Man, this was an incredibly easy game. Well, let's save Luigi and get this over with. Because that's gonna happen, right? Oh, come on! Alright, get on with it. What? Space and writers were really struggling for a paycheck, weren't they? Anyways, hit him 6 times in a pretty much identical fight, where, you guessed it, it's pretty much identical to the previous Bowser. Oh my goodness. Was this really a thing that happened? And that, thankfully, concludes Yoshi's New Island. Overall, Yoshi's New Island is not good. at all. I'm sorry, but there really is nothing that I enjoyed about Yoshi's New Island. It was all an entirely bland, forgettable experience. I apologize, I simply cannot rephrase that. But in all seriousness, I have never seen such indifference in a Nintendo game. Especially one developed for Yoshi, one of Nintendo's flagship mascots. I mean, seriously, if it wasn't for Yoshi's Woolly World being a thing, I'd even say that the series would have been dead. But before I conclude, I really need to state that opinions are purely subjective. If you like Yoshi's New Island, that's fine. I disagree, but there is nothing stopping you from having that opinion. Besides, the internet. But in all seriousness, it is okay to have your own personal opinion. After all, who on earth would think that an opinion would be so detrimental to their everyday life? Seriously, disagreement should not be taken that seriously. I hate Yoshi's New Island. I simply do not find any enjoyment out of it whatsoever. But I would like to say some minor positives. Firstly, the graphical style is nice. And secondly, a lot of people have complained about the music, but I honestly don't think it's really that bad. But that is it for today, folks. Finally, I can put this stinking game behind me. I feel such immense joy. And that will conclude the Yoshi's Island Marathon until I can get my hands on Yoshi's story, in which I will continue the series from there. And oh my goodness. Thank you guys for watching. Bye-bye.